Of course. Alright, testing. Let's see if the sound on this thing is working. Right. Testing. You guys might hear a double audio for a second. This thing is working. Right. Cool. Looks like it's good on ZBrush Live. Once this ad is done, we can check it out on Twitch as well. Alright, sign up to GZ from scratch. Okay, so I'm on the Restream chat. This platform lets me chat with y'all on Twitch, on YouTube, Facebook, so feel free to ask any questions. Check the audio here. Facebook, so sweet. Alright, cool. Okay, let's start off the top. My name is Aiman Akhtar. Thank you for joining this week's ZBrush live stream. I'm going to be doing some sculpting today, but I always start out with a little bit of show and tell and recap. So you can learn more about my work at aiman3d.com. Do a lot of 3D printing, so that's why my talks I tend to focus on 3D printing ideas to reality. All that means is really I like to think of something, sculpt it, and then actually make it a real physical thing. And I do all sorts of projects, so sometimes it goes really small, sometimes it's really big. But yeah, you can learn more about my work at aiman3d.com. My latest project is Fungusaurs. So my wife Fa and I, we're co-creating a little dinosaur mushroom hybrid species that we're hoping to make an animated series out of AR games and toys. So did a Kickstarter after creating these characters in ZBrush, and we took these toys all over the world. And now we're working on an app that lets you play with them in augmented reality. So I can kind of briefly show that. If Sketchfab cooperates. There it goes. Relevant in the ZBrush live stream because I sculpted all of these guys in ZBrush. Did a lot of topology out of ZBrush, textured them in ZBrush. But yeah, it's our own kind of like indie game that we're developing right now. Fungusaurs. And you can follow us on @Fungusaurs on Instagram and just see all the fun stuff we get up to. Trying to make a thing happen in Hollywood. Alright, what else? If you're interested in articulation, keying, slicing for 3D print, I came up with this ZBrush IMM brush, which you can get from Gumroad for 10 bucks. I'll drop that link in the chat so you all can see it and access it if you're interested. Here's the link. Keys brush. And it didn't type the thing I wrote. Okay. Articulation brush. Alright, Kurt Boutier, what's going on, Kurt? Pixel Desire, thanks for joining. Niels Erickson, Martinez Garcia, I love how you guys have like long names. Hi, what's going on Facebook? Sweet, okay, cool. People have started streaming in. So I'll just continue doing the usual spiel. On pixelogic.com ZBrush Live presenters, you can see all these awesome artists and all of their previous videos. So if you scroll down to my name, you can see the past broadcasts and schedules. So this is my last scheduled day for this month. I'll be back next month. And you can see some more of my work. So here's the Fungusaurs mystery box set prototype. And now we actually are selling the toys on fungusaurs.com. And retail hopefully once the game's done. And 3D printed dress that I made back with 3D World magazine in 2015. And my own business, 3D Smiths, where I work with directors to take their 2D ideas into fully realized 3D printed maquettes. Usually for pitch work, sometimes for trophies. So here's a bunch of my previous videos, so you can see how I did like a My Little Pony magic wheelchair, a mask for my dog Kuma, some articulation, some molding, casting, and reverse 3D printing. This video goes into depth about how to use that keys and articulation brush, so you can check that out if you're interested. And been making a few different masks over the past month because of Halloween. So I made a Hector mask for my friend Sean. He actually stitched it onto a balaclava, so he can actually move it around. I can actually show you that briefly, what he ended up doing with it. So if you click on that, you can see how I actually was trying to key the mask, the jaw into the bottom of the mask. And while you look at that, I can pull up the reference. Alright, here we go. So here in this video you can see how Sean actually stitched the bottom of the jaw to a balaclava so he can do some expressiveness. This works really well for Hector because he's a skeleton, but it wouldn't work as well for the Joker mask that I made for myself. And because I don't want that jaw to be a separate floating thing, I wanted to figure out how to key that jaw into the top of the head for that mask. So a little refresher on that. Let's see, where is it at? Where is it at? There we go. Okay. So this was the Joker mask that I made in my stream last week. You can kind of see how I go about sculpting something like that on top of a scan of my face so that it will work. You know, I want it to fit on properly. It's already proportional. I know that I'm not making it too thin at the jaw or at the temples. I'm not making it too wide. I know there's enough space for my nose. So things like that you need to be aware of, and a scan can really help when you're sculpting like a mask. And you got to think about actually building it like an engineer. So each of the teeth I built separately, and then I put them all together. You can see a few different references I was looking at. And I started painting it up. And so there's basically what the finished mask was looking like, with the jaw being separate from the top half. Alright, and then bullying out the inside. So I'm using my head as a cutter, the head scan as a cutter to basically get the inside to be started cleaning up. So let me update you guys on where the Joker mask ended up so far, and then we'll get into today's stream. Once again, I'll have this restream window open on the side, so if y'all have any questions, just shoot them out. Got one question already from Pixel Desire 3D on Twitch. What did you use to scan your head? So I got the head scan done at SIGGRAPH, I believe, 2014 or 15. It was a 3D MD scanner. So it's the type of scanner that has two. I can show you a photo. It's easier than trying to explain what a scanner looks like. 3D MD scanner. So this is the kind that was used for mine. It's what does it say? Okay, so there's two different scanners here. That's a next engine scanner, but the one I wanted to show you is the one on the left here. So this is the kind that was used to scan my head, and it was really quick and fast because it's got multiple cameras that shoot in like a millisecond and they capture your face. But there's a lot of different ways to get a head scan done now. Or some that I can recommend. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of ways to get your head scanned, so if I think of some, I'll let you know. Short of like getting a high-end scanner, there's some mobile device apps that let you scan your head now too. Okay, Pixel Desire is getting a frozen transform today. That's awesome. How big is the transform? I keep hearing about the frozen printers and I think they're all big, but not necessarily all of them. So frozen transform, not bad, about 1600. What size? Yeah, so this is the big one. Look at that. Uncle Jesse showing off this massive printer. Oh, cool. So you can actually print like full masks in there in one piece. And it looks pretty clean. That's awesome. Tell me how it goes, because if it's a good printer, I might see about getting it myself. I am a Formlabs fan. I've got two of them. I don't know if y'all can see in the background, but I can zoom up to show you my printers. So I've got the Raise 3D N2 Plus. So this is a 12-inch by 12-inch by 24-inch build volume. So for FDM, I can print some really big stuff really quickly. And I've got a couple of Form 2s. And so those are for the fine resolution, detailed stuff, stereolithography style resin prints. So that's what I use for those. But I'm kind of curious. I want a big resin printer as well. Okay, cool. Torch Potato, I don't know when you mean by which printer is that. I just explained my printers. This big one is called the Frozen Transform, spelled P-H-R-O-Z-E-N. Okay, cool. Let's jump into ZBrush. Spin. Okay. Turn some pieces off. Alright, so this is where I had left off last week when I was showing y'all in my stream. Just Boolean cut out the head. The top and the bottom are separate pieces, meaning the jaw and the head are separate, but I didn't do any kind of keying or slicing or articulation there yet. So you can see there's still like two separate pieces. And this was all built on a head scan. And I don't really need the full head for this case. It's just kind of the front of the face is fine. Because I've got a big enough nose where I want it to not, I wanted to sit on my nose well. So what I did then is I started doing some keying, slicing, and articulation. So let me show you what the solution I came up with for this. So I basically created a space for a hinge for the jaw. And so the jaw would actually fit into there and it would hinge into place. So these cylinders are basically hinging and locking the jaw in place so the jaw can move around. And then I created like a weird little, I tried both. I've tried a, excuse me. I tried a little like hooked kind of grappling hook kind of end and then just a straight end just to see which would work better because I don't know yet. And I'm going to put a spring in here so I can spring load that, and the channel for that spring loading goes on the upper part of the mask, and there's another kind of grappling hook piece sticking out of there. So the spring would go into there, and you know what, let me just show you on the sides so you get an idea. There, a little bit more. There. Alright, turn on polyframe mode. Okay, so the lower jaw you can see is hinged into the upper part of the mask, and there's 2 points here that don't connect, so that I left a bunch of space in between them for a spring to kind of attach onto the two sides. I'm probably going to try to epoxy that spring into place so it's really stuck onto both of those ends individually. And then the idea is that this lower jaw, not right now, and the hinge is about like around there. So the idea is the lower jaw can open and close about that much and stay within that channel. So I'm hoping that makes any sense. The lower jaw spins, around that axis of that hinge. And again, let me hide like half this mesh. Joanne Ragudo, thanks for joining. Glad you made it. Torch Potato, I wanted to ask how fine the smoothness level of a detail from a form printer can be. Yeah, I can show you some stuff. Cut a little bit more off the side here. Tad more. There. Alright, so with the jaw, even once it's hinged, these 2 points don't really completely connect, so there's room enough for a spring to compress and contract. And then after, and because it's spring loaded, so to speak, the spring would force the jaw closed. So it would keep, I would open it by opening my mouth, and then the spring would force it closed. So there'd be a bit of resistance. And the reason it would open when I open my mouth, is because right here at the bottom of the jaw, this area is where my chin would go. So basically I made a little space, a pocket for my chin. So like under my chin, I made a little space for the beard too, just in case. But basically my chin would rest at the bottom of the mask. And so when I open my mouth, you see how this bottom of the mask moves with it? It's kind of hard to explain. I should just show you. But that's basically how I engineered this thing to work. And it is, I'm doing quotes, but it is engineering. So yeah, there's the finished mask, and the painting treatment, whenever I get around to it, is going to look like this. So my goal is to try to get this done before October 31st. We'll see if that happens. But it's printing right now, so there's no reason it can't. Here's the lower part of the jaw. Or the jaw. Why do I keep calling the lower jaw? It's the jaw. Here, make that a bit bigger. Take a second for the lights to adjust. Miguel Guerrero, what's going on? Thanks for joining, mate. Miguel's making some awesome giant prints on the Race 3D himself right now. I might show yours, Miguel, in a sec if you don't mind. So here's the jaw, not the lower jaw. And you can see the hinge stuff is in there. It's ready to work. The upper part is printing right now. It's about halfway done. It's like a 39-hour print. These prints take a while to do. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to remove the bottom supports and see how this fits on me. And if it's properly done, which I hope it is, it should just fit really well. So the supports for FDM, they come off pretty easily. I'm just using my hand to pry them off. There you go. Supports off. Some more in here that I'm just trying to wrestle with. Might be easier with the plier. Okay. Alright. And some of these on the side I'll need to actually use a tool to, get out of that hinge. So there's some supports in there. But let's just see how this fits. Sweet. So the idea is that the hinge would stay there. It would force it to keep this area right there. So I can actually kind of interact. The beard, let me see if I can actually kind of stick it into the mask. There you go, better. Now it's not sticking out of the bottom. So in theory, once this is attached to the upper part of the mask, this should work. And that's because of this pocket right here. Oh my god, it blows out so much when I try to show you. This pocket right here, that's where my chin is resting on. Yeah, white is not really the best material to show prints in when I'm doing this kind of stream. Maybe there's a way to turn off the autofocus on the camera. Yeah, beard guard. Exactly, right now, without the upper part of the mask, is just basically a beard guard. But I can imagine in the future that we're kind of heading towards with face tracking and cameras in every corner. People will start wearing more masks or weird kind of technology to block their face identity. It'll be kind of a thing the new generation does, like either makeup or different kinds of elements, just so you can't know who they are all the time walking around. But I'm pretty psyched about this. This turned out really well, and it fits. Using the scan, I'm not surprised. It should fit. Let's see, Kerbatier wanting a raised printer now. Grim Reaper should try doing a full Skeletor mask. I should. Ooh, that's a good. Oh man, I would love to cosplay as Skeletor. I just don't want to paint myself blue. I'm like a hairy dude. That's like a lot of paint that would be very hard to take off later. But you know, I could come up with some 3D printed Skeletor thing. You're right. Maybe Mumra. Mumra is easier to do, I think. Okay, Miguel's saying good to show away. Sweet. So let me pop over to Facebook and show you this awesome stuff that he's just printed. Let's see. Wonder if I want to go to Art of Mag or Guerrero. Let's bring this down. Okay, so Miguel Guerrero is an awesome artist I've had the privilege to work with here in LA a few times. And he's got a Raise 3D as well, so you can see some big stuff that he's just printed. So it's a big enough printer where it's about the same price point as a Form 2. It's $3,500, but you get size out of it. So you get size and you can prototype for a lot cheaper. So the Frozen, as excited as I am about it, it's a resin printer, and resin is expensive. It's like 150 bucks per liter, at least for the Formlabs stuff. It can be like 50 bucks or so for generic resin. But that's like a giant headpiece. I should actually show the rest of it, because I think he just posted a photo of the assembled piece. There we go. Alright, so check that beast out. That's a massive print. It's really hard. Miguel, you need some bananas in here for scale. So printed in 3 pieces. Looks like the horn was printed. The horns were each printed individually, and then the whole head was printed in 1 piece. And then looks like there's a base too. So I don't know if that was printed or if that's a mannequin. I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, I don't know if that's a print, but at least those are, and they're massive. But yeah, if you all have worked on any cool 3D printed projects, let me know. I'd be happy to share. I like seeing what people come up with. Okay, so close out of that. Pixel Desire is asking how much does one of your spools go for? So by spool, you're probably talking about the FDM resin spool. Hold on, I can actually grab it. Okay. All right. So this is the oh god, tiny camera again. So this is the spool that I just ordered. I've never used this brand Overture before. I think it used to be just Amazon Filament, and now they just changed their branding because I guess people don't want to keep ordering just Amazon stuff. I do not like doing this stuff with headphones on. It's like super limiting. Okay. So I'm just opening this box so you can see this is what a 3D printing filament spool looks like. Overture, unboxing time. Overture tends to send like a ruler, like a discount code kind of thing, and like a build platform. I don't know, what do you call these? Build surface, 3D printing build surface. So you basically stick this onto your build surface, and it's got a little bit of like sandpapery grit to allow the prints to stick on them. And then here's the spool. So this is what your 3D printing spools look like. And I'm sure everyone's seen some of these now. They're pretty basic. You just cut the plastic off, you put it into the printer here along the side, and then it's a glorified glue gun. Like, this printing technology isn't like complex. The XY calibration and then the fine tuning, that's the complex part of FDM 3D printing, but it's basically taking that fishing line spool of plastic and melting it with a hot glue gun and laying it down X and Y. That's all it's doing. So the question was, how much did they go for? I think this Overture one was like white 1.75 millimeter, and I think it was like 19 bucks, 18 bucks. You can get spools as cheap as like 10 or 15. You can even get them like for less than that if you order in bulk, like wholesale. But I don't know if you need to. I've honestly ordered some really cheap filament rolls, and just it's bit me in the ass. So it's like, might as well get something that for 20 bucks I can basically print all of this mask, so the entire Joker mask, and then still have leftover to print more stuff. So you can prototype pretty cheap, is the point. Oh yeah, Grim Reaper saying you can even buy colored filament rolls like gold and stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Not even just color. You can buy filament that is imbued with like different material properties. So you can buy filament that is wood filament, or you can buy like some like alumide, like aluminum based like metalish filament. You need a bit of a stronger hot end to pull that off, but yeah, it's doable. Alright, so that was a big fun intro and glad we got into it. Let's jump into ZBrush now and start doing some sculpting in the ZBrush live stream. So I guess actually before I can jump into ZBrush, I have to show you what the plan is for what I'm doing today. Alright, so here we go. So my friend Marco, who works here with me at Fungusaurs, he's done a lot of amazing storyboard art for us. He's wanting to do the snake wizard thing for Halloween. It's coming up really quick, so I hope I can get it printed in time. But the idea is basically like a cowl that fits along the side of his head with like points that come out front. Now the points that come out front can't be too low, because otherwise he's got that Batman problem where he can't turn his head because the points will start, you know, engaging with his body. But they can be a little bit in the front. I think that's okay. And it's got to sit on the head. So this isn't like a face mask. This is like a full, like on the head. It's basically a cap that has to be put onable. So I measured his head yesterday so I could just make it accurately as best as I can estimate. And we're going to come up with the design on the fly. So we've got some reference that's been gathered here to take a look at various snake head cowls done in the past. I think this is one of the Cobra Commanders from G.I. Joe. I think so. I can't tell if that's Prime 1 Studio or who made it, but it looks dope. I have no idea where most of these are from. I'm just going to show you different like snake cowls, snake head cowls. That's a dope design. That would take forever to print though. I don't think I can pull that off. That's more high fashion. Oh, that one is neat. That one's way more complex than I can pull off in the next 2 hours, but I do like how it affects the silhouette. Like that's really the big takeaway, is that whatever I make has to affect the silhouette enough. And I'm not making the whole bottom part, just at least the top part. I want to move. There we go. Interesting. So that's kind of like a hoodie. Oh, the classic, the bad guy from Conan the Barbarian. So basically a cowl. Ooh, that one's dope. Very futuristic. I like it when other people gather reference for me, because usually I have to do all my reference gathering and it's not a surprise. That's interesting. But this one's got the snake head, so it's not really... oh, I like that. That's dope. I think that's Warcraftian? Oh, Wizards of the Coast. So got like some giant orc tusks, got like teeth sticking out of the top. I actually really like the teeth sticking out of the top. Makes the mask a little bit harder, but I kind of want to figure out if I can do that. So I need eyes, I need teeth, I need to change the silhouette, that's for sure. But let's start with just the base of the mask. I'll have all this reference pulled off to the side, and that's the secret to being a good 3D artist, is have good reference. A lot of the times our job isn't concepting, it's coming up with, it's making a 3D model based on existing reference provided by a concept artist. So make sure you have all your reference pulled off to the side. There's a lot more reference here that I could go through, like Copperhead, I think this guy's name is, from DC. But I'll have it all pulled off to the side. Right now I kind of want to just work on the base, which is... Here we go. So this base. Before I get into it, I need to figure out the head measurement. So first I'll do that. And I took some measurements of Marco's head, so I'm going to try to mock something like this up really quickly. I'll probably do this in Maya, so this will be much faster for me, and bring that into ZBrush. So I got 9.5 inches side, back front of the nose. So that's back to front. Okay. Let's do this simply. Let me check my scale settings. And in the meanwhile, while I'm prepping this scene, this is just so you guys can all see my process. Just feel free to ask any questions and I'll get to them as soon as I can. I check every once in a while. So when I'm not doing anything, that's what I'm doing, I'm checking. And let's start playing some music as well. Alright, let me know if the music gets too loud, I'll turn it down. Okay. I'm going to set this to inches. Save that. Let's create a sphere. And a sphere is a good way to start. I don't really care about the resolution of it to start. So if you press Control T in Maya, you can see the dimensions, and right now it's about 2 inches wide. Now it's about 10. So we need it to be 9.5 inches from the back to the front. What? Oh. So that's 9.4. Keep pressing Control R rather than Control T. Alright, so that's 9.6. I'm going to make it a little bit in the middle of that. 9.3. Wow, this like shrinks super quickly. Alright, 9.5 something. Okay, so now that is the back to the front of the nose. So that's like there is 9.5 inches for Marco. 8 inches from ear to ear. So the sides have to be 8 inches. So I'm just going to shrink it on one side now. And we can see that that's about 8.1. Let's make it a little bit less. 8. Okay, there we go. So we got that, 8 inches. And then 10.5 inches from the trapezius to the top of the head. So that's basically his head. And just to be a bit more, I'm going to make it a bit more head-shaped. And we need to make a trapezius, so I'm going to duplicate that, bring it down, slide it out, duplicate it again, just use that for my neck. Okay, so that's kind of the base we're working with. And it's 10.5 inches from the trapezius to the top of the head. So that's the trapezius, that's the start of your shoulders. And this is only important because it's a cowl that has a piece that goes all the way to the trapezius. Otherwise, I wouldn't even mock it up. But I'll select both of these and press Control T. And right now it's, oh, okay, it's measuring all the way, and I don't want to do that. I'm going to just delete all of that. Sure that's right to the trapezius. So that is 11.8, and I need it to be, 10.5. So let's move this and this up together. Still a bit much. $10.7. Okay, so that's basically correct. It's hard in this case because it's like The trapezius is its own separate mesh, but all I need is a really basic mock-up to begin. Okay, all right, so that'll be my basic mock-up, and that's what I'll use to start this piece. I'll combine these pieces, export selection on the desktop. See Snake Wizard headpiece, Marco mock-up. Let's bring that into ZBrush and see how it fits. Okay, import that in, draw it out. Okay. And this scene that I've got the Joker mask in this scene, I know my head is about 10 inches from the top of my forehead to the bottom of my neck there. So let's import that, let's append it, I guess, the mock-up in there. Something's off here because it's way too big. I could just resize it here, move it in place. It's weird how it didn't bring it in at the right size, because that's kind of the whole point of doing that kind of thing in Maya. And I don't think my scene is off, so it couldn't be that. Let's double check it. Why did it do that? Control T. It's about 15 inches. Yeah, it's the right size, at least in Maya. Sometimes with Maya, the export settings to ZBrush can be bad, just basically because you're using centimeters or inches or something else. So at least with OBJ, it can be tough. Let me try not using OBJ. So I'll go to setting preferences. I'll keep that as inches. Save. And I'll export selection, not as OBJ, but as STL. Markup 1. STL ATF. I'm not sure what ATF stands for. But for STLs, if you want to bring in an STL into ZBrush, you need to bring it in via, not by import, but by Z plugin. 3D Print Hub. Import. And no, it won't even bring it in. Alright, so you can see it's giving me some trouble because it won't export an STL, which I've done about 1,000 times, but for some reason it's not working today. So I might as well actually use Scale Master in ZBrush to draw this out. I know my head here is about 10 inches in ZBrush, so I know I can get it to work. I'm going to go to Geometry, Modify Topology, Mirror and Weld, make sure that that's even and spaced out, evenly spaced out. And what I'm going to do basically is make sure that this mesh is slightly larger than his head, just so it'll definitely fit on. Well, I actually don't want to set the scene scale in this because I've already done it once before when I did the Joker mask already. And I'm just going to get started because I already know that my head scan here is the right size for me to export and print. So that's more important than the mock-up being the right size. In this case, okay, I can turn off the Joker mask because it won't need this. And I'll use my own head as a base because I can. And I'll just smooth the heck out of it. Okay, so now we've got our starting point. And that was ear to ear. Back of the head's usually a bit larger. Alright, so that's basically the proportions that I want to make sure this fits in. I can also use my Move Topologize brush to clean that up, only one mesh at a time. And I can use my clip curve to clip that along the side, just so it's not too distracting. Okay, that done, I can also do a geometry dynamesh, and it'll basically combine all of that stuff. And I'll merge my head down into there as well. After moving those neck pieces in. Top stuff too, whatever. Merge down and dynamesh. Okay, so now I've got a good mock-up to begin. And we want to make sure this cowl fits well beyond what this mock-up is. In an ideal case, I'd have a scan of everyone every time I did something. Never works out like that. I'm going to try to get some definition in this mesh, even if it doesn't really matter. Helpful to know where the sternocleidomastoid is, where these clavicles are in your sculpts. I'm just going to smooth it out just because I don't really need to worry about it right now. Inflate that up a sec. So this is even before I'm beginning my main piece. I'm just kind of trying to create a good build base. Alright, there we go. Okay, that's plenty. Okay, so now what I want to do is start building the cowl on top of this. I'll save the scene as Snake Wizard 1. Just make sure I delete unnecessary stuff out of there. You'll notice I usually have a sphere at the very top of my subtool list. That's just because ZBrush, when it saves tools, it saves the name, like it changes the name of the subtool. So I usually have a sphere that's mostly empty up at the top. That's my naming sphere. And then this can be the Marco mockup, and I'll delete all the rest of this. And let's start building on top of here. Save again, so it's clean. Alright, Dahaniffer saying Scale Master is the key. You can put out all your measures. Your unit in ZBrush is not correct. Use Scale Master to fix it. So there is a lot of stuff I can do in Scale Master, but what I think is that this scene should be correct, because I built this scene based off of an actual, scan of my head, so it should be accurate. Let's test it out really quickly. So I'm just going to export as an OBJ Marco Mockup 1, and let's go to Idea Maker. This is my print prep software for the Raise 3D. It's going to be a tough test because sometimes it doesn't import in well. But in theory, if I bring in the Snake Wizard Marco Mockup 1, and if we look at the scale, yeah, all of this is wonky. Alright, I'm just going to build it right now, and then I'll figure out the scale after, because that's not fun for you guys to see in a ZBrush stream, me figuring out scale. At least the proportion's correct. So, we can start building, assuming the proportion's correct. And I want to have X symmetry turned on when I do this, and I'll probably even turn on, use something else like my snake hook brush with this Sculptor's Pro mode activated. That way I can very quickly, without worrying about the topology, shape this piece. And start thinking about the proportions. Like I said, that's what matters. The base of the sculpt. That's kind of looking like that character from Clone Wars. The girl, I can't remember her name, the one with the stripes on her face, she's orange. You know who I'm talking about. Okay. In this case, I don't know if I want to cover the whole back of the head. It's like a lot of material for something that won't be seen as much. So I can just do something like this. Be smart about the way this cap is used. And the best bet is to actually duplicate this headpiece, use it as a cutter, and if I turn on my render booleans, live boolean, you can see I can use that head to cut out of this cowl thing that I'm building. So I'll do that once. I'll go to make sure these pieces are dynameshed, because that's how it works. And then I'll merge down. Wait, hold on. Group as Dynamesh sub, merge down, and then cut. That way I've got a good starting point, and I know that it's cut out from the head, and there's space for the ears. Okay. Making sure there's extra space for the ears. And let's turn that on just so we have a base to build on. Alright, now we're going to play with the proportions and see, like if I make this thing stick out a lot, something like this, then when Marco goes to meet and hug people, he's going to stab them. So these are the kind of considerations you have to make when you're making physical things to make it user-friendly. Everything's got to be user-friendly. I don't mind it being a bit long because I'll likely print it using that as the base in 2 pieces. Alright, now that we've got that figured out, I'm going to duplicate that. And let's start changing the silhouette. The silhouette's the most important thing. Ahsoka, that's the character I was thinking of with the tentacles for the side of the head. I'm trying to pull up all my reference on this other monitor. And turn the music up in the meanwhile. Oh, I got another question here that I missed. Let's see, a couple of questions. Maya, does it get really expensive over time? Yeah, I mean it's subscription based, so as long as you have a business and you're able to, work with it, it's fine. I'm glad that it's subscription based. I honestly don't believe people should have to pay for software when they're learning the software. So like everything should be free for students. Once you're making money from it, you should be paying the subscriber or the software company in some way. I'm not personally a big fan of the subscription model, but I also can't afford like Maya, like the full $3,000 or $10,000 package, whatever it is. So subscription is better. Indie Respawn asked, have a printer, the Ender 3, was curious how to go about smoothing the layer lines from the print. Like lots of sanding. Yeah, so in FDM prints, sanding's the way to go. There's also another thing I can recommend. It's called XTC 3D, and I've used it a bunch. It's a 2-part resin solution. That's what it is. There's a part A and a part B, and you can combine those and smear them onto a print and let it cure. So it's resin that you put on your FDM print, you let it cure, and then you sand that. And it basically gets rid of build lines entirely, smooths the heck out of anything. So yeah, but you do need to let it cure. So you can't do this quickly. You need to put it out in the sun for like a day or something. Yeah, so that's my recommendation. Okay, Snake Wizard headpiece off to the side. Reference folder stuff open. Leave that there. That there. Okay, cool. So looking at what has been drawn up, you can kind of build on top of that. Make sure my window is small enough that y'all can see. Cool. And let's start by making this piece a bit more out there. I'm going to turn off my, what the heck is this called? Sculptress Pro mode. Because I don't want it to be so prevalent. And to make this more snake-like, I'm going to start changing the silhouette a bit. And we do have to make it fit within the head, so that's really the big limiter. I'm going to take my H polish brush, just kind of sharpen that crease a little bit. And I'm not really caring about the topology too much right now. I'm just trying to figure out the base shapes. And I'll come back to the topology. Actually, you don't ever really need to come back to the topology in 3D printing. As long as you don't have intersecting faces and surfaces, as long as you don't have holes in your mesh and it's watertight, you can print most things. I might lower it just a tad, so it's like fitting on for sure, like a cap. Okay. Where'd the music go? That song is just particularly quiet. Once again, let me know if the music's too loud for you. Seems fine to me. Apologies for the flickering on the screen sometimes. I just need to sort out my windows. Okay, so that's the basics of the side of the mask. And I can even do some embellishing just so we have a clear idea of what's going to happen there. So a little pharaohic. It's my word that I just came up with for pharaoh-ish, but we're gonna have to make it more snake-ish in a bit. We know we need eyes. Start creating spaces for those. Use the clay brush to build up volume quickly. This will be a fun experiment. I haven't really printed a full cowl like this before, so I'm excited to see what happens with it. You can switch to a different material just to better see, not have so much contrast. This is the Ralph Stumpf Sculpting material. So I noticed that when I'm sculpting, I didn't have backface masking turned on, so it pulled up a lot of stuff, and that kind of made it very hard to Dynamesh, so I don't like that. I'm going to undo and make sure I have backface masking on the clay brush when I sculpt it up. Backface masking is basically going to prevent, when I add volume here, it's not going to pull it up out of there. That can be a huge problem. Same with smooth. When you do smoothing, you want to make sure your backface masking is on for the smooth, so you don't lose the detail on the other side. I think I want to be good enough eventually to join the costume designer guild here in LA and Hollywood. We'll see. It's a process. Everything's a process. I'm designing this as I go. Hopefully y'all can learn from my process, but hopefully you're sculpting along. Best way to learn is to do it yourself. still making large proportional changes right now. I'm tweaking the whole design at the same time. Not sure what parts of the silhouette I should affect just yet. And so just experimenting. Nothing wrong with experimenting. Trying to come up with the cool shape language. I use a lot of damn standard tool to do this. Trying to make those eyes stand out a bit more in the silhouette. This middle crest as well. Change the shape of these eyes so it feels a little bit more evil. Yeah, I like that silhouette a lot better. I'm going to change my Dynamesh resolution. It's a little bit higher. 128 to, let's say, 300. And I get those eyes back in again. Actually, should bring those eyes in as their own separate mesh. Check if y'all have any questions. Let's see. Some people just joining in asking, what is that? Is that an Egyptian pharaoh? Where's the back face volume option? So the back face volume option is under brush. I believe brush, let's see. Where is back face option? Here, brush masking, I believe. Yeah, brush, auto masking, and then back face mask. You can't see it because of my face. Here, back face mask, that's where it is. So this isn't an Egyptian pharaoh, it could be, I guess, but I'm going for like a snake wizard thing. Someone's saying, I don't know, my dad on Twitch is saying, Shroud is gone, Shroud is gone, Shroud is gone. I don't know what that is. What is Shroud is gone with the Crabman logo? What happened to Shroud? So this happened about an hour ago. Some famous Twitch person is gone? Okay, cool. Moving right along. So I'm going to keep trying to figure out these larger proportions first. Even if I don't get done with the mask, the priority is to create something cool. Alright, I gotta look up some snake eyes to see what snake eyes are like. Let's see if I also flatten that part in a bit. It's hard, there's so many options with cool snake shrouds. I think I like a little bit more of this shape. But I might change my mind later. Reserve that right. All right, let's do some Googling. Snake eyes. Of course, that brings up the G.I. Joe character. Looks like majority of snake eyes are completely round. Real. Funny. You have to actually type in real. So majority of it is just showing that the way their pupil is shaped. And as we can see by a lot of different snake sculptures, the eyebrows are actually what give it that its shape, not the let's see, snake fangs. So you need to have a little bit of curve to those fangs to really, you know, make them look menacing and threatening. There needs to be an element of threat in the snake fangs. That's what has been missing. I'm going to go to insert and insert a sphere, drop that in. You can also go to your brush settings under depth and lower that depth so that this sphere is going to be sitting in a lot better. I'm going to use that as my eyes. Split on mask points, and then now I can sculpt comfortably. Not worry about the eye shape so much being affected as I sculpt around it. Whoa. Sure I'm on the right tool. There we go. Get a bit more menace in there. I don't decide what I want to do with the back of the mask. I'm still not sure. Flaring out the silhouette there, trying to see if it can be a bit more threatening in its evilness. Alright, so Joanne Ragudo is saying the eyeball itself is round. What I've been told is that venomous snakes have slit pupils, while non-venomous snakes have round pupils. Not sure if this holds across all species. But you're right, slit does look menacing. Let's add the slit in there somehow. And we can either carve it in or add it on. Let's try carving first. Need more geometry in there. The slit does definitely add to the menacing vibe, I guess, of it. And carving it in will make sure that this will read when it's 3D printed. Now my hesitation is making the mask too big though, because if it's too big it won't get printed in time. Dynameshed it, but I want to make sure I have enough resolution when I dynamesh it. Another strange idea. If I actually have a little bit more anatomical detail in that fang, kind of like there's the actual tooth and then there's the gums that are trying to keep that tooth attached. Inflate brush, inflate up the top of that fang a bit. Been a while since I dynameshed, gonna do that again. Not too much, can't make it comical. Fun part of this is going to be when we start adding some snake-like texture. See, go back to those snake fangs. Have some reference open as I do it. I also don't want this to kind of poke his own eye. It'll be really threatening and distracting if it's constantly there. Always thinking about user experience when you're making something like a mask or a cowl. You have to. Now, snakes don't have noses, right? Or do they? Some of them do. Some of them got like big nostrils. I feel it makes it a lot scarier if I do add that nostril. Need to think about those features as we design. I don't know what's happening with this crest in the middle. I'll try to flatten that out and see if it's any better. I'm going to start trying to apply a little bit of texture. See if that can help me figure out the direction I want to take this. I'm applying texture pretty simply, just by damp standarding on, scale, feel. Yeah, that definitely helps me figure out what is going on. Let's see if I can find a cobra. Cobra's got some awesome, look at that. Cobra's got such awesome scales all along the sides. Set this to large images. Not sure if I like Google's new look. It kind of limits how big I can see these things. Yeah, because it forces you to go to it. Anyone know how to make that window be larger? Like this window? Because I'd love for it to have an actual, like, you know, see the full image size rather than see it that tiny. That's great, but it's blurring the part that I wanted to see. But actually, that's good for reference because it can have some really big scales there too. They all don't need to be uniform sized. Uniformly sized. So what that does for me here is I can adjust . and have some very large ones. You can even actually incorporate this central piece into the snake scale pattern. Makes it a lot more interesting and dynamic for sure. I'll have to figure out how to break the symmetry of this later, because I really don't want to do it right now, as I'm trying to figure out all these various things. This is really the great thing about ZBrush and why I love sculpting with it, is very quickly you can come up with designs, iterate, and then even do like high detail stuff. I like that. Changing having some size variation there really makes a lot of difference. Makes all the difference. Let's see, let's get the shapes right first. Let's see. There we go. Finally starting to figure out what I want to do with these fangs. Yeah, short and sweet, scary and menacing, but not in the way of the wearer's eyes, and they're not going to stab someone that they go to just, you know, hug, hopefully. Always got to think about user experience when you're making these kinds of things. All right. Dope. Let's keep on with the large scale stuff. Use the pinch brush to adjust the flow of some of these side frills. Smooth brush as well. H polish to flatten. Hope y'all are enjoying seeing this design process. If you tune in, probably in like a couple of weeks, you'll see, I'll show you the finished thing. Need to figure out what's happening in the back here as well. But it's been a while since I saved, so I'm going to save Snake Wizard 1. Alright, Grim Reaper saying they do smell with their tongues. Even so, they have nostrils, but they smell primarily with their tongues. Let's see. Okay. Let's figure out the flow of this geometry right here. Even if you look at it from the back, it should be still interesting, you know? That's the whole point of making stuff in 3D. You can't just focus on the one side for too long. Yeah, that's feeling a lot better. Damn standard tool can very quickly let you get your language figured out, your edge flows. You got to find the right angle to do it in, though. There we go. You gotta check it from all sides. Otherwise, no guarantee that it's working. Just think that it is. Then I can use the pinch tool. And right now it's still quite a bit lumpy. An ideal workflow for this, I'd be working with multiple subdivision levels, so I can go down a subdivision level and tweak it there. I'm not too worried because I will eventually cover it all in scales, but still, you know, like if you have the base of it not right, it doesn't matter how much surface detail you add, it's still going to be apparent that it's not right. the point of all this mask should be, all the flow should direct you towards the eyes. Like the teeth are subtly directing you towards the eyes. Even the eyes of the snake are directing you towards the eyes. All of these things on the side, the ledges, all of them should direct you towards the eyes of the wearer. At least that's how I envision it. Everything serves a purpose. I'm gonna keep fighting this lumpiness in the back a little bit longer. Get it right. Admiral Supernova saying, can think of that old G.I. Joe cartoon when you think of it. That's good. That's one of my references. Cobra Commander, right? Let's see. Speaking of references, let's see if we can do something a tad more drastic to it. So there's Cobra Commander. A pretty different vibe than that. It even has a lower part of the cowl, which we're not getting into. But what can we do that? Okay, so the nostrils here are pretty different. Let's change the shape of the nostrils. Yeah, you're right. These kind of look kind of basic. If I change the shape of the nostrils to something like that. That looks a lot cooler. Okay, that's what you got to use reference. You can very quickly take things that you can pull from various pieces. Got the texture there. I like what they've got going on with the edge of this, I don't know what to call it, the silhouette here. How it kind of flares up. They do that here too. Let's see. Let's see if I did something like that, what it would look like. I'm just going to take my inflate brush and inflate right along the edges. Interesting. Don't love it, but I don't hate it either. Let's take some damn standard tool to it. It is a nice detail. Let's pinch all of it. It's a bit tighter. It adds a lot of detail without doing much work, which is good. That's always good. And it changes the silhouette a lot more. Could make it a bit clowny. So I don't necessarily want it to be clowny. So like that versus like that. Kind of like that middle area where it's a bit blurred away. We'll come back to that. Let's look at some other reference. Nope. I like how many teeth this one has. That's really dope. And it's even got horns sticking out of the sides. Yeah, see, actually adding some horns would be pretty fun on this. There's the original Cobra Commander one. Whoop. This is so 80s, this image. Or 70s, I don't know. It's just the hyper color and proportions. Heroic. Ooh, teeth coming out of the bottom. We can't pull that off. We don't have a bottom. But horns coming out of the eyebrows. That's interesting. All right. That's something I can play with. Save this. Let's go ahead and append another sphere right around there. Think about it in terms of a horn. Do we like that? Let's move it to make it more about like a continuation of the eyebrow. It's kind of off. What I like is that it changes the silhouette and makes it much less recognizable. It's not bad. I'm gonna leave that in there for now. Let's see if there's anything else we want to pull from our references. They're doing the same kind of thing along the edge here. So yeah, we can play with that. More teeth. Everything is just saying more teeth. Let's see what would happen if we were to pull out some more teeth. Insert the sphere. Whoa. Take inflate and then just tap that at the bottom. Subtool split, unmask points. We'll duplicate that. Move them around. You don't really see them from this side at all. Just duplicate them again. Move them off along the side. Give them like a bit of a base to be in, so they're not just floating there. We can go to each of these teeth and adjust them. Might actually merge all the teeth into one. Oh, got the eyes too, but oh well. Now I can use move topological and just adjust on the fly. What do you say, more teeth or no? I don't know. Now that I've added them on, I'm not feeling them. Let's see if we add some asymmetry to them. I'll turn off my X symmetry. Just move these around a bit more so they're more unique. See if we pull some of these down even more. going to try to merge all the pieces together so the mask is all the same color. I don't know. What do y'all think? I'm not really feeling the extra teeth. Makes it more monstrous and less snake-like anyways. Grim Reaper saying King Hiss is probably a good reference for snake heads. Let's look that up. King Hiss. When I see primarily as the toys, oh, this one, yeah. No, I definitely have this as one of my references. Sometimes you just need to look away and come back to it. And yeah, the more I come back to it, I'm not really feeling all these extra teeth. Let's lose them one by one. Whoop. So there we lose the front ones, still have some ones on the side. I don't know if I like those, so I'll lose these. This isn't bad, like having like these little side ones, little danglers. Maybe I'll add just those. So I'll delete hidden. Geometry, modify topology, delete hidden. Select these guys. Split, unmask points. Or split hidden, whichever. Whichever works. I'll duplicate it. And move them off to the side here. And merge them back in. So it's got the two fangs out front, the primaries, and then just some other side chompers. Yeah, I don't know if I love them, but we'll keep them in for now. Alright, let's start adjusting the sides here a bit. Not sure what I want to do with them. I'll start to make them their own individual pieces. And I'm gonna basically just add a lot of snake texture everywhere. And I need to figure out the scale, and this should be good to start printing. Maybe need to key some pieces, some parts, so that it's printed in at least 2 pieces. That'll be necessary. Frazetta fan saying bigger on the main fans. John Raguda saying smaller teeth do help frame the face a bit. Let's see that. Let's see if we go bigger on the main fangs. Yeah, don't mind it. Bigger is usually better. The problem with going bigger is then when the person's wearing this cowl, they gotta watch out for those fangs when they go to hug people or, like, you know, whatever. But you know what? You want to be threatening, you gotta deal with the different user experience you get. That's interesting. Like, if I point this down, how quickly it turns into like a beak of a dragon or something and not snake-like. Always amazed by how quickly things like that can happen. Alright, I'm going to try something else also. If I turn on my drag rectangle tool on my standard brush, I believe there is an alpha in here that can create a snake-like effect. Let's try even doing something like a spray. It's a very quick way for me to add scale detail without actually adding all of it in. I mean, granted, I probably will go in and add a whole bunch of scale detail, but this will help me visualize it before I do it. I'm liking the silhouette, I'm liking the overall effect of it, and I think I can cut it right down the middle here to print in 2 pieces. I'm going to try to flatten out the top a bit. Oh, that's dope. Very different. Pretty psyched with how far we were able to get this in just 2 hours. Started this stream till just right about now. 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time till about noonish. I'm going to keep hitting different parts of it and look at it over the course of the day. I never tried to sculpt and print something on the same day. You always want to look at it the next day if you can. Get some fresh eyes on it. And I'm going to make sure all of these scales are pretty well blown up. Meaning I'm going to make sure that the creases are pretty deep. Because when you 3D print it, you want to make sure that it reads. The good thing about adding texture is that it'll cover up all the build lines, so I won't even need to do XDC 3D or anything like that. It'll just, it'll read. Around the eyes we want to have some smaller scales, and I'm running out of detail now that I'm texturing, so I'll need to add some subdivision levels. But yeah, it's about noon now. Time for me to sign off. So thank you all for joining. Hope you all enjoyed watching this thing come together, at least as much as it has so far. Let's apply a different material to it so you can see it in more of a snake-like glory. These Hulk materials. That one's dope. So, hopefully it'll look badass when it's done. And I'll figure out how the hell I'm going to get this printed. Might print in 3 pieces actually. These side pieces keying into the top, which is printed on its own. I don't know. Fingers crossed. We'll figure it out. Rosetta fan, love your work, bought my joint brushes. Thank you, man. I appreciate the support. Let me know if you have any questions with those brushes. Those are version 1, so I'm planning on updating them with the problems that I hear about from people. Let's see. Demon Chaos Theory, love the fast work. Thank you. Yosh. Dope, dope, dope. All right, y'all. Thanks for joining. I'm going to start signing out now. And if you tune back in a couple of weeks, you can see the finished Joker mask. And you can follow me online on Instagram. There's Instagram Fungusaurus, so that's kind of primarily what I use Instagram for, is my own mushroom dinosaur toy line and game and animations that we're developing. So you can follow hashtag or @Fungusaurus. And then my own personal is Aiman Akhtar 3D. I don't know why that's all caps, but whatever. Yeah, so you can see the various things I post up and do on here. That's Aiman Akhtar 3D on Instagram. Thanks for joining. I'll see you all next week. Cheers.